Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. It's been a whirlwind of activity the last couple of weeks, and we're excited to welcome Tyson Chandler here today, and gratified that he's joining the Suns. Two transactions that we've completed. The first was a trade of Danny Granger and Reggie Bullock and Marcus Morris to Detroit in return for a 2020 second-round pick. And the other transaction is that we signed Tyson today, and it was a very thrilling moment for me and for all of us. Those are the only two transactions that we're allowed to talk about today. So I know you have a lot of questions about a lot of things that have been circulating in the air and about, but these are the only two transactions that we're actually able to address, which is good because we should be focusing attention on Tyson anyway today. And we've done a lot of press conferences over the years, and today to me is one that's particularly gratifying because we are adding an unbelievable amount of manpower to our organization and to our franchise and to our team and to our community. Talking about a champion, talking about a gold medalist, defensive player of the year, an all-star, an all-NBA player, and his leadership, his character, and his professionalism will serve us, serve our team, serve our franchise, and serve our community well. So we're very, very excited about that. So with that, let me just turn it over to Tyson. And as I say, this is a special day for us. I think we have just increased our character, our leadership, our professionalism by leaps and bounds. And all three of us sitting up here have already felt the presence of Tyson, just being around him, talking to him, meeting with him, spending time with him. He is of significant physical stature, but even greater stature, I think, as a man and a human being and a person of character. So with that, I turn it over, and we're excited about it.
Thank you. First, I'm excited to be here. I want to thank the entire organization for making this an easy process for myself and my family. Free agency it's always a difficult time, for me, because I'm a guy that kind of likes to, I would rather stick in one place and, be there. So they made it really comfortable for myself, my wife. My wife came home and talked particularly about Coach and said how comfortable she was with the decision and how she was really excited because he made it, very well known as a family atmosphere and that, that's what they planned on building on. Me, as an athlete, I'm looking forward to playing with a lot of young talent. I felt like it was a place that I can come and really mentor and help and try to take this team, to the next step. I know this has been a city that's been thriving and always had an incredible fan base. And, this team has been right on the brink, for being in the playoffs the last couple of years. And I feel like, that's the first step. It's trying to get into the playoffs and, and building from there. I'm really looking forward to mentoring and working with Alex Lynn. I think he's an incredible young player. I had a chance to see him yesterday, and I felt like, we'll have a good future together. He's a lot of potential. And, I think the combination of the two of us will bring a lot of size in the West, which is really needed. So, I'm really excited to be here. I think it's an incredible opportunity, especially, this point in my career. For me, it was about having an opportunity to still win, compete, be in a great city, and have some great young guys in a great organization. And I feel like, I was able to check all those things off the list.
So with that, we'll open up. I'm sure you have questions for Ryan and Jeff and Tyson and maybe even for me, but feel free and let's go.
This question's for Tyson. Richard Sines, Fox 10 here in Phoenix. You touched on mentoring. You've obviously been on championship teams like Lon just listed. Just tell us about the importance of teaching younger players the ability to be a professional, not just on the court, but off the court, doing the little things that lead to championship caliber teams?
Yeah, it's, the thing about winning is it's a full-time job, and it's not just on game days. The preparation has to start, every day in practice. We have to be locked in, we have to be serious, really paying attention to details. And it's just kind of getting that focus around the locker room, making sure everybody's engaged and everybody's locked in. Because, it's never going to be one player that's, going to make a team win. It's going to take the entire team, and that's the part I'm looking forward to.
Tyson, Dave King with Bright Side of the Sun. So you in your career have been mostly, at least in the last 7-8 years, have been mostly on veteran teams where you were actually one of the younger guys on the team for the most part, right? So tell me what led you, did you come into free agency thinking you wanted to go to a younger team and be a mentor, or is it the Suns that convinced you to do so?
It's really the Suns. For me, like I say, it was all about still being in a situation to succeed and win, being in a great organization, and also being in a good city. I have a family, I have a wife and 3 children, so that was very important for me. Then, when I met with the entire staff, they laid it out on the table, and when around the league, you already kind of have an idea, but you're kind of on the outside looking in. And, it's always been a talented roster and a group of young guys. And then when you get to my position, you kind of look at, okay, where will I fit and where can I really help and, make the most impact? And looking at the Phoenix Suns roster and, competing against them last year, which, they beat us, I think, 3 out of the 4 times.
Should have been 4, but...
I saw there was a lot of potential there and a great place for me to come in and kind of make my mark.
Tyson, Paul Hansen, Extra 910. Can you talk about the process happened very quickly? Can you take us through the process, went through from your side and a little bit from the Sun side and how it came to fruition so quickly? And
Well, from my side, I knew and understood, before everything even started, where I would even, see myself being. So once it all started, I kind of just, looked at the teams that were in the running. Once free agency started, we met and sat down. I had questions. They answered those questions. And at that point, it was kind of just going back and discussing things with my family and figuring out, what was best. And the phone calls, at that time were still coming in. But at that point, I had made up my decision. I made my decision, made up my mind. And I walked away from the meeting. I was sold. So I felt like there was no point, of going through the ringer and continuing, while players are jockeying. I knew where I wanted to be, and I also wanted it to be done early because I wanted other, guys to see how committed the Suns were and have the opportunity, to bring guys in.
Shane Dale, ABC 15. Coach Hornacek, just from what you've seen from Tyson playing against him the last couple of years, just what kind of toughness defensively does he bring? Just talk about what you've seen from him defensively.
Well, I think his overall game, we talked about the leadership. Tyson makes us coaches feel a little bit younger because he's talking about players that he played in the league with, and we're like, wait, we played with those same guys and against those same guys. So, that's a great thing. But, Tyson's done it on a high level his whole career. He's been the defensive anchor for all these teams that he's played on. Won the championship. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to protect his teammates, how to talk to his teammates. Our biggest problem probably last year is we didn't have a lot of guys that talk. Tyson will be the director back there. He'll tell our guys, what defense we're in, what the rotation. He'll be helping them out that way. And he's just a veteran guy who, has played, I don't know how many games you've played, but it's probably 1,000 games.
A lot.
You know all the little things. He's seen everything. And that's where it's really going to be a big help for our team is to show these young guys different situations and be able to talk them through on the court. as coaches, we can do, preparation, on the court, we can be, yelling things out. But when the players and teammates are talking to each other out there on the court, that's what makes the team good. And, it's his value is going to be so high for us just in those terms. We put all his scoring and rebounding and everything else to the side. It's just that presence out there with our young guys that is going to be a tremendous help.
Bob Baum from Associated Press. Tyson, what's your level of your reaction or disappointment that they weren't quite able to land another big free agent here?
Well, of course, as a competitor, I was, in it and trying to get guys, over here. But I wouldn't say any disappointment. That's free agency. And when I made my decision solely on, myself and looking at the roster and seeing what I can do for this team and this organization. So, of course, when you're going after guys, you want to win at everything. But, there wasn't much disappointment, because like I say, I felt and understood what I can bring to this team and I still believe it.
Matt Peterson, Suns.com. Ryan, there were a lot of big men in this free agency group. What made you choose Tyson to go after as the first priority in what you guys were doing?
I think off the court, Matt, all the things that Coach and Lon mentioned, just about his winning intangibles, his leadership. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of Tyson Chandler is a winner and winning. His teams in New York won a lot. His teams in Dallas won a lot, including a championship. The World Championship team in Istanbul when I was there 5 years ago won the gold. So he's always won everywhere he's gone. So that's the first thing you think of. And then you think of on-court and the fit. We struggled last year with our rebounding. We struggled last year against some of the more physical guys in the post. Really in terms of our leadership and experience. And the more and more we started thinking about it going into free agency, he really checked pretty much every box we were looking for. We thought there might be an opportunity because, as you mentioned, there were so many bigs in the market. So we reached out to Tyson and his agent as soon as we were able to on, I guess, 9 o'clock our time on June 30th, midnight Eastern on July 1. And we happened to be in L.A. and got in touch with him. He came by the hotel and sat with Coach and Lon and Robert and I. And, we knew about his reputation. We knew about what he has done on the court. But once you get to spend some time with him and sit across the table from him and his wife and look him in the eye and find out what they're all about, what they were looking for was kind of exactly like what we were looking for. So that's how the deal got done so quickly. And then, as we mentioned, he's been very instrumental in helping us recruit other free agents. And, he's a guy who has a lot of respect around the league. You talk to guys, really any position 1 through 4 about who they want to play with. Tyson's one of the first big men that comes to mind on that list.
Gerald Bourguet, Valley of the Suns. Tyson, you're sort of known for, your experience, your leadership, your defense. But on the offensive end of the floor, you're kind of like the dive guy in the pick and roll. Is the prospect of playing with, 2 really young and talented guards, was that something that appealed to you on that end of the floor? Yeah,
absolutely. I think we'll both make each other's lives, a lot easier. They have 2 explosive guards that, I know firsthand from, trying to control, playing against them. And now, I think of Brandon and Eric, turning the corner, with good picks and then also having a threat, at the rim. It's going to make their life easier as well as, guys will get a lot of open shots.
Hi, Tyson. Paul Coro, AZ Central. How are you, I feel like you've sustained your body into this point of your career. You've had some of your best years recently, and looking forward 4 years, was that a factor in coming here?
Yeah, I've tried to be a professional, my entire career and, really take care of my body and learn as technology grows and, and trying to work with different trainers. And this is one of the places, this has always been an organization that has been known for the training staff. So that was exciting for me, to be able to come in and work with these guys. And I felt like, I can even take myself to another level. I feel like, as long as you're lacing them up, you should always try to be the best and, and be the best that you can possibly be and, get the most out of your body. So having the opportunity to work day to day, with a staff that's, known for being great, was a big factor.
Paula Bovin, AZ Central. Tyson, I think in some past teams you've been characterized as a guy sort of willing to tell it like it is, even with your teammates. And I wonder if that's a fair characterization, and when is that effective? Do you think it's just people know who you are and know that you're being straightforward, or?
Yeah, I think guys know that I'm going to be honest, with them and with myself. And I feel like, if you want to be a winning team, a winning organization, you have to build that culture. As athletes, a lot of times you get in a situation where, you kind of hear what you want to hear and never, what you need to hear. And the older you get in your career and you're able to be around great vets, like Jason Kidd, Dirk, and in my younger days, Antonio Davis and Charles Oakley, who will definitely tell you exactly how it is. And Scottie Pippen, you start to pick up things along the way, and the older you get, it starts to come together and make sense. So I try to pick my times, especially with young guys. You don't ride them too much, but I think it's very important that you set a culture, from day one, and that's what I plan on doing, from day one.
Dave King with Bright Side of the Sun. Ryan, the last couple of years, you've always said that you wanted to focus on the very best free agents, trying to go after the very best free agents in free agency, but otherwise wanted to develop the young talent on the team. And some have said that you can't do both. You can't always go after the playoffs and develop young talent. Do you feel like with the addition of Tyson Chandler, you're going to still be able to do that, develop the talent, and shoot into the playoffs at the same time?
I sure hope so, Dave. That's what we've tried to do. As you mentioned, a lot of people, I think, feel like you have to pick a direction in the NBA. It's either go all in, and to me that involves, trading draft picks and young players and just getting veteran guys, or, you need to break it down and just play young guys. And what we've tried to do isn't easy. We've won 87 games in a very difficult Western Conference over the past couple of years. But, now we're bringing in some more veteran players, some talented veteran players to go with our young guys. And, I think the model probably involves some of the veteran guys starting and playing a majority of the minutes, and then the young guys learning from them. And the thought process is, as time goes on, you try to have a winning team every year. You try to get in the playoffs and hopefully compete for a championship every year. And then at some point, when the older players, their level falls off and they're not what they once were, the young guys have developed and are ready to step right in. I think that's what the good teams and good organizations do. Last year I thought we were a little too much skewed toward the younger end, toward the younger side. I thought we were a little small up front and got beat up sometimes in the post and on the boards. So really, Tyson, as I mentioned before, checks a number of boxes. He fits with a lot of those criteria. And as you guys know, it's been a wild free agent period. The first week and a half, the West is tough. I mean, most of the top free agents from Western Conference teams just kind of played musical chairs and ended up with other good Western Conference teams. But we feel like there's an opportunity there for us. And we feel like, we've certainly upgraded our roster. Tyson's a huge part of that, and the young guys can learn a lot from him and watch him, and some of the other veteran guys we brought in as well, and hopefully take the next step next year and make the playoffs.
When we went over to the Palomar to sign him today, we did not have to lock him in the room. So that was in and of itself a good sign, and he's a willing participant.
We were joking about it last night. We were at dinner, and we were at the restaurant. I said, "Yeah, we're keeping you in here until you get signed." And I said, "I'll handle Tyson, Pat Conley. You handle Keith, because I didn't want any part of Keith."
Yeah, it could have been ugly if it went a different way.
Matt Peterson again. Jeff, how ideal as a coach is this for you with having an established veteran, a productive guy, and a young guy who's still growing at center where neither one necessarily has to carry the entire load in the middle for you?
Well, we're hoping at some point that we can get the two of them out there at the same time. There's going to be maybe some situations where we're playing a team that maybe doesn't have a stretch four guy, and maybe we can go that route. But they're going to play great together. Again, Tyson's leadership for Alex is going to be something else. Alex is a sponge. He wants to learn everything. That's why he's on Synergy all the time. That's why he's in the gym since the season ended, working on his stuff. And when he gets with Tyson, I think Alex is excited about it, and he truly is, and he knows he can become better. He's 22 years old, and all the little vet tricks that Tyson pulled on him over these last couple of years, Alex is going to love learning from him on all those things. And for a coach, it's great because again we're out there. They listen to us every single day. We're constantly saying stuff, but when their teammates can help them out and help mentor them, that's when the guys really, I feel, make strides. And Tyson hit it. When you have a good team, almost all good teams I've ever been on, you have somebody that's going to get on guys, and you have players who accept that too. They're not going to say, screw you, Tyson, I'm not going to listen to you. They know he's a veteran guy, won a championship. He's going to be that leader, and I think guys are going to follow that, and going to carry us to the next level.
You mentioned that winning's important to you. And what have you seen in this team, maybe in the past season, and what they're doing with the roster now that makes you feel like it's close?
I feel like just the way the West is moving, very guard-oriented, the pace of the game, wings, that are very aggressive and, can score all over the floor. I felt like Phoenix has that, and I felt like they have that in young guys, which, I saw myself, growing with. So that was one of the main attractions. I feel like, with the style of pace and the way they play the game, it was just, I felt like I can come in and, and put those little things that were needed to kind of get over the hump.
It's Bob Baum at AP again. Tyson's for you and also for the two gentlemen to your right. You made a joke about it, but are you guys at all concerned about this moratorium period and whether a verbal commitment will hold? Because your former team got left pretty much in the lurch.
I think anytime something like this happens, there's always going to be, there's always going to be talk, and there's always going to be talk about, rules being changed and things like that. But it was a verbal agreement, so, he had the option to change his mind. That was his decision, as a man, and that's something that, he'll have to stand with. So I think it's all based on each individual case, and it's not something that has come up, very often in our game. So, I'm sure, there'll be talks and they'll be thrown around, and from that, these guys will be in meetings and figure out, if the rules will be changed or not.
Bob, it's a great question. I've actually been thinking a lot about it the last couple of days because I've been on both sides of it. My guess is that the league will look at it and look at whether the length of the moratorium period is the appropriate length, but everybody understands the rules. Everybody understands that there can be no enforceable agreement before the moratorium ends. And there is kind of a process that's unfolding that you base decisions based on commitments that have been announced, and the market unfolds, but we all do it with the caveat of knowing that it could all change. As an agent, what you want to do is make sure your player understands all the ramifications of the commitment they're making and make sure that they're comfortable with the decision and shouldn't announce a decision until they have to. But people change their minds. They're human beings. I've lived through it myself. It's a challenge. But everybody understands the rules. And the rules couldn't be clearer that you can't have an enforceable promise or agreement until the moratorium ends, and whether that has to be changed or not, I don't know. But there's certainly decisions made based on the commitments that have been announced. I mean, that's how the market unfolds, and it's a tricky business. Good news is it gets a lot of attention, and there are a lot of people talking about it. So,
Paul Calvisi, ABC 15, Arizona Sports. When it comes to bringing maturity, how much impact can you have? How much can you help a young team grow up?
Well, I think it's really based on, the character that you have in the locker room, to be quite honest. And, from being an outsider looking in, and then even, having some time to spend with a couple of these guys, I feel like, you know, they want to make that next step. You know, I feel like it's a good group of guys. And, you know, that being said, I feel like you can have an impact. I think the only time you can't have an impact when you don't have willing participants. And I feel like in this case, you know, it's a good group of guys that wants to get better. And like I said, I ran into Alex yesterday, you know, and we had a good conversation. And, you know, like Coach said, he just seems like he wants to be a sponge. And I'm excited. You know, I didn't know initially how he would take it. And, you know, it's very exciting for me because I've since day one, that's been, you know, huge on my priority list, is to making him the best player he can possibly be and helping him along the way. And I think we'll both benefit from it. You know, I'll benefit from going against him every day in practice and, you know, vice versa.
A question for Lon. With the salary cap rising so much in the next couple of years, there's understandably been a lot of pressure on player salaries going up this summer, and you know, in anticipation of that. Was that a big change? Was there any big change this year in how negotiations went? There was some thought that players might only want 1 or 2 year contracts, but it sure seemed like most of them took the longer ones anyway. Did anything change in that?
You know what? If you look back over time, the salaries are always going up by some degree. And I think for us, I think we do a tremendous job. I'm very proud of the job that our group does in planning, not just for this year, but for years ahead. Trevor Buckstein, Pat Connolly, our analytics group, Ryan, in consultation with Jeff and the coaching staff. You know, we don't look at anything about what's going to happen in the next week or the next month. It's this year and years into the future. And, you know, we anticipated the impact of the market. I think it has some effect on your thought process, knowing what's coming down the pike. But really, it's like that every year. It seems like every year the salaries are going up. Maybe, but it's just a matter of degree. And that's a good thing. That's good for the players, and it means the league is growing and expanding, and that's what you want. So it was a robust market. I think the market moved. You know, people say it moved very quickly this year. That's always been my recollection. I thought last year was atypical, as the league kind of waited for certain people to make decisions. But in past years, it unfolds very, very quickly.
Ryan, do you anticipate, you added 2 guards today, the addition of Tyson. Do you anticipate this is the roster that you'll go into training camp with, or do you maybe anticipate another free agent signing? I guess you have about $4 million left under the cap, or possibly a trade, or do you feel this is the roster that you're going to go to training camp with?
You know, I think we'll probably add another player or 2. We usually try to have at least 13 guaranteed contracts, 13 high-level players, and that's how many you can dress every night. So we want to get the best guys we can. You know, we feel like we owe it to Coach and Tyson and, you know, the team to put the best group together we can. So sequencing becomes important. You know, there's no short way to explain it, but when you sign players based on their cap hold and renouncing players who are free agents and things like that you've had in the past, that all comes into play. But yeah, you know, I think we'll spend up to the cap and probably even exceed the cap, you know, to put the best team we can together. And we've took a great first step toward doing that today. You know, getting Tyson locked up and getting the deal done with Detroit, but there's still, you know, probably a few more moves to come.
Adam Green, ArizonaSports.com. Tyson, this one's for you. Leadership, rebounding, defense. Is there one thing they've talked about? This is what we want you to bring to this team, or is it just the whole package?
I think, you know, in bringing me here, the organization, you know, at this point in your career, you know, people know who you are. So I think it was all aspects, to be quite honest. Is, you know, on the court, you know, things, as well as, you know, in the locker room.
Anyone else?
Thank you.